Wait, never mind.
How can teachers facilitate learning in the sensory center? How can sensory play enhance children's learning? Why is block play important to a child's development?
Okay, teachers can enhance sensory play by putting different materials. Sometimes they could use like the shredded paper, or they could use, of course, the sand, the dirt. They could use rice. They could use coffee grounds, coffee ground, and different things. In the wintertime, they could bring in snow. So, and they use measuring cups, bowls, plastic cups and different things. They can have animals in there, use the Easter egg grass. So there's a lot of different things they can add in there. Continuously, change it up so that the kids won't get bored with what's in the table, in the water table. And then they can do like Play-Doh and scented markers and all those different things too, as well for sensory.
I'm excited we're doing gardens. So I'm getting everything ready for Garden Works to come out and set up our gardens, but the kids are going to be involved with it. So that'll be great sensory for them, getting to plant the seeds and digging and getting muddy in the dirt. But I'm all about that nature life when it gets warm outside. So even today we were playing a little bit in like the mud because they had some boots. So I think that using what you have for sensory, it doesn't necessarily have to be kinetic sand. It doesn't have to be all these things, but like what Carmelita was saying, it really can just be like shredded paper. It could be these simple things that we don't realize. Sensory for a kid might be an empty water bottle. There's so many things that they could do with a box with all these different things. And sometimes they just want to touch something soft or, so working with what we have, I think is a good way. And I think it enhances the children's learning because it adds a whole different level to it, right? So it's one of your five senses. You're not just learning about it through sight, but you're actually getting able to touch it or smell it or taste it, or, there's so many different senses. So I think that that's how it'll do.
Yeah, I agree with you guys. I was actually going to say the same thing. Like for sensory, you can use like your five senses. So like, you could be like, oh, what do you see? What do you smell? You probably can't taste it, but what do you hear if it like is loud? And I think kind of what you guys said, using different areas can incorporate it because, some children might be into getting really messy and other children might not like it. So just like, changing it up and having different things. And then I guess also like, when I would have like sensory play, like I would put like toys in there. So like if it was sand or even if it was like rice, like the kids would have like a shovel so it can help like their like fine motor skills or finding things. And then sometimes we would hide like we had like these magnets, so we would hide like ABC magnets in there or like number magnets so the kids could like are still learning like as they're finding it. So they're like, oh hey, B. And then I don't know if we're going to talk on this, but I know since it's on me, just why is block play important for children? Block play is important too because it enhances children's like mathematical skills, and then it helps children learn about like building and engineering, and it's also kind of like it helps their like problem solving skills and just all those math concepts.
I can go next. So I think everything that everybody said, sensory play is so important. My son was diagnosed with sensory processing disorder when he was 3. And I think sensory is important, not just for kids who have those kind of needs, but all of them. I remember my son playing for a long time with the beans and the touch that he got from the beans or whatever I think I've seen all the students in my classroom do. They can just play with the sand, the auditory, the kinesthetic thing, all those things. Sensory does great to the kids. And as you guys said, there are so many ways we can put rice in there. We can put beans in there. We put snow we put water so many times. All those things are great for our students to play and explore. And for blocks, yes, blocks are important because those are open-ended things. we don't tell them build this, they just use their imagination and take it from there. So
Mhm.
definitely very important.
I'd have to agree with everything that you guys said. I know for our sensory table is super popular, and we had those little water beads things in there. The last time we had it open, I know I do have some students though that will literally have a panic attack if they get anything on their like fingers or hands, like whether it's like dirt. I have a kid who can't even handle getting a like marker on his hands. He freaks out and will have a full blown panic attack. And even like that, like when you have sensory items, you can even find out like what they're like sensitive to through those items, which helps you become a better teacher. And why is block play important? I'm gonna read what Professor Wade wrote. He said, engineering is rooted in the reason and physical dimension of engineering is a direct expression of the ability. Math is also, so the two are naturally inseparable. If one is present, the potential for the other is also there. That creative is reasoning being expressed with few limitations. I wrote that my students gravitate towards building stuff in his class for one of his discussion posts, and that was the response he gave. He said kids just naturally gravitate towards block play because even if it is structured in a structured time, so like if it's centers and one of the centers is blocks, it's unstructured in that aspect where they're building whatever they want to build. They're not confined to that space. But yeah.
I agree with what everyone, oh, sorry, Tessa, we're gonna go. Oh, I agree with what everyone said. All of that is important. I mean, I feel like I don't know what else to add that you guys haven't said, but yeah, I was gonna like Marissa, what you said about the blocks and the building and things like that. I feel like my kids, literally, I have the same kids every day. When we open up centers, they are directly going to the blocks, the magnetiles. They're building castles, they're building gas stations, whatever their imagination is on that day, that is what they're doing. And they will spend the whole like hour and a half just doing that. And so, I mean, I agree with everything that everyone said.
For our sensory stuff, we actually just did this yesterday and today. We had these Rubbermaid containers, and what we did is we put some dirt in it from the outside, added water, made some mud, added in some animals, so the animals were dirty. And then we gave them like toothbrushes to be able to scrub and wash the animals, just so they could play in the mud more than they could when we were outside. And it just allows them to feel the different things. And like you said, you know, not everybody gets a chance to do those things. And I don't know the politically correct thing to say, but I do know that there is something about children being able to play in the dirt and in the mud, that it does something to their brains, which pulls more. But something else that we do with some of our sensory play and to enhance the center is sometimes we'll change the lighting that's around it, whether we dim the lights or we will turn on different colored lights around it. Or we will move our light table into that area. They really like when we do our treasure hunt, we'll throw like the little tongs in there. I think Emily, you were talking about like the alphabet letters. We call it the alphabet treasure hunt. And they're like those little, I think they're called like pilar beads or something like that. And it's just filled with those, and they just have to dig through, and they have a card that has a letter on it, and they're just trying to match that letter and identify what it is and their sounds. In the block play, you guys hit, I think, everything on the head there with that. And the only thing I would add to that is that, you know, it's important, and it ties in with math with the spatial awareness, especially when they're building. You can ask those open-ended questions, and that's kind of where you can bring in the, are you building it? next to or behind, or really open up their minds and ask them, you know, what they're creating. How did they come up with that idea? Maybe they've seen that somewhere before, and you can connect it to it. And my next thing, I mean, it kind of goes into the next question of what could you do in the block area to enhance your children's literacy, math, and or science skills? So with our block center, we have all the different sizes, but the ones that are, I would say they're probably about this big. What we did is I added in environmental print. So like I printed out a picture of the Target logo, Lowe's, our daycare center, houses, things from around the neighborhood that we would see when we go on a walk, the doctor's office, things that they knew in the community. And then when they're building, they use those and they're like, oh, well, here's the Dollar Tree. So we're going to put this store here, and they just create using that. So that ties in your literacy. Math, you can ask them how many blocks high. Science.
So one of the things that I use for the blocks, when it comes to science, I think math, we talk more, but we read books on water and such. So for our blocks, we stack them on water. So it's not the wood blocks, we also have the foam blocks, right? And those will float. So then they don't get that high, but we fill up our turtle outside that we usually keep our balls in. We put water in it, and then we try to build again. But we're using those foams to see how high we can get them. And by just adding that one element of water into it, it elevates it so much for them. They can't understand why it's getting more, it's teetering more, and you know what is going on. You know, it's so easy to stack next to the turtle, but then I'll open the turtle and show the water and say, let's do it on here, and all of a sudden, you know, they take an extra 10 seconds to really think it through. So I think that that's how I would facilitate my learning for the block area.
That's a cool idea. I like that. I like all your guys' ideas. And I know something that I used to do too, like it's kind of like math and science. Like we used to use ramps sometimes in the block area. And we would have like balls in there, and like the kids would kind of like build with the ramps, and then they would put their cars on there, and they would just test, you know, what would go down faster, and they would just create different ways. And we would also have like tubes in there too that the kids could like build with.
For one of the classrooms I'm in, she has like the wooden blocks area, and she has like little signs for all of the sizes of the blocks, and she assigned a shape to those blocks. So like for the the long rectangular blocks, it says rectangle and then shows the picture, and then that's where they stack it up, which kind of goes into math and science because you're learning about shapes and stuff. What was I gonna say? On top of right here. And then she makes them stack them up like on top of each other. Like when they're on the shelf, she like stacks them so they're perfect. So it looks like an adult did it. And they literally will spend like 10 minutes stacking the blocks up just so it's nice and organized. I want to do that in my classroom personally because our blocks area is a nightmare.
And we at our school, we have this exactly the same thing that Tessa said. We have put the store pictures. This is Target, this is, and they all pretend play. They make a city out of it. I'm going to Target, I'm going to Lowe's. So definitely blocks can be turned into so much more. And that ties in with math in a way. They count so many times, how many blocks should I use to make this tower? And science is always there because they're always thinking, they're always creating, they're always being scientists. So definitely block area can do so much.
Yes, I agree. Even in the block area, as far as math, they can do things like my kids like to stack the blocks and they see which tower is taller. And then I go and, I see them over there doing it now. And then I ask them, like, which one do you think is taller, you or your tower? Are you taller than the tower, or is the tower taller than you? And then they'll turn their back and stand next to the tower. And since I'm trying to do documentation, they be like, take my picture, take my picture.
Yeah.
So, they was like, I'm taller, it's taller. And also with the books, because sometimes they just want to sit in the block area and read a book. So, while some of the friends are on one side playing with the blocks, I've actually had friends that are sitting down looking at books while they're over there as well. So.
Primarily that's like my kids too. So like right now we're in a buildings unit like theme right now. So
Yeah.
my lead teacher, she posted up in the block area like different types of buildings that they could like build and things like that. So sometimes they'll try to like imitate it. But they're the same way. Like I have to put into TS Gold too. So like they'll be like, I did this, take a picture of me. And then they'll want to see it and everything.
Yeah.
So
we use measuring too with our blocks. So the kid will lay on the floor and we'll see like, oh, how many blocks long are you type deal. We do the same thing with like snowflakes though, different things. But then we'll put like construction trucks out like to make it a construction zone with the blocks, like just different things, different aspects. But yeah, especially with teaching strategies, it's nice because then it's like, let's kill two birds, one stone. I send the picture home to mom and dad, but also I get to use that for documentation. So it works out both ways.
All right, are we good, ladies?
Yep.
All right.